You Booked It, episode 31. Hey, entertainers and performers of the world. I'm your host, Dane Reese, and welcome to You Booked It, where I chat with inspiring entertainers 7 days a week. By digging into their journey, we're going to discover everything you need to do to be a successful entertainer. You know, because training usually skips that part about how to actually make your skills work for you in the real world. Fellow entertainers, my drive here at You Booked It is to share the inspiring and incredible journeys of successful entertainers. We are here to support your journey. So go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the You Booked It email community where we dig deep into truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you book that next audition, submission, or gig. If you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support and search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app where you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a rating and review. And to show our appreciation for your, fingers crossed, 5-star rating and review, I will give you a shout out on an upcoming episode. And now, let's do this. All right, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Ryan Kelsey. Are you ready for this, Ryan?
I'm ready, man. Excited to be here.
Brilliant. All right, Ryan was born and raised in Las Vegas to a family in the performing arts. His mom and dad did several shows on the Strip in the 80s and 90s, and he and his sister are in the industry to this day. Ryan has danced in several shows in Las Vegas, including Jubilee, Vegas the Show, and Pinup. He's also done shows all over the world, including China, Japan, Holland, Germany, Ireland, and many other countries. He's currently the dance captain and resident guitar player at Chippendales, Las Vegas, where he's been for the last 6 years. Ryan, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, who you are, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry?
Yeah, thank you, man. So, like I said, I'm born and raised here. My folks danced in several shows on the Strip. Back in the day, the old Stardust Hotel. My mom danced in the Copa Room. I was actually born in between shows, and my
Really?
my dad actually went back and did second show after I was a really quick birth and I was healthy, and they didn't have any coverage for him at the show, so of course they let him go see his son. But he was doing Solid Gold at the Riviera at the time. Went back and did the second show, so I guess it's been in my blood since since I was born.
Absolutely.
So yeah, when my mom retired from being a showgirl, she has her master's in dance anyway, so she went right into teaching. And I grew up, I sort of joined dance, not against my will, but it was more out of boredom because she would use the dance studio as a babysitting service, essentially. My dad was still working at night, still doing shows. So in the evenings, I would just hang out in the dance studio and, do my homework there and play with the other kids. And I was just kind of stuck there. So I started taking gymnastics, and then the teacher sort of convinced me and a few other studio boys, like, oh, come on, I'll start ballet together. I'll start dance together. And so we kind of begrudgingly did. And here I am 20 years later, still doing it. But I started, one of my first shows was Jubilee, which ran for 35 years. Over that, I think, actually. And a fun story about Jubilee is my entire family has done it. So my dad was in Jubilee in 85. My mom was in Jubilee 87, 88. I did it in 03, and my sister did it in 2010. So we've all kind of ran long enough that we all ran through that show. But yeah, I started traveling. I did a version of Tap Dogs. I was primarily a tapper at first. I was okay at jazz, okay at ballet. I was pretty good with my feet though. So I got a show called Tap Dogs up in Reno, and then there was a Stomp-esque show back when that was a big thing that was touring in China. So they auditioned here in Vegas. It was Vegas owned. So I ended up touring China for a little while, making some noise. And then, that kind of just slowly led to shows where like I was tapping a little less, maybe doing a little more jazz. And, my jazz musical theater kind of developed as much as an adult as it did, in studio as a kid. To the point, by the time I did what I did in Japan, it was a Japanese cruise ship. And, we that was primarily, jazz musical theater, very cruise ship, old school musical kind of style shows. And, there's always like an around the world show, and, it's always the same themes. That kind
Yeah.
of really rounded out my, a lot of my different techniques and versatilities, just because you had to do so much different, styles of dance, there. And by that point in time, I wasn't much of a tapper anymore. I mean, I still could do it, but, my jazz was developing. And when I got back to Vegas, I joined Vegas the show, and that's, was a really, really, still it's a really challenging show, really stylized. And a man named Tiger Martina really helped me develop like the character work and putting meaning behind some of my movement as I was in that show. And I was dance captain too, so I was responsible for teaching the males and the females. So like just unlocking some of my own movement where to learn how to like teach a feminine step, or to move in a different way that I wasn't used to. So that was a really good journey there at Vegas show. And then I moved over to pinup, which I watched you close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started. I did the very first show, and you did the last one, right? I was there that night.
I did indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, so that we bookended that show. Just one male track, and so how hard that show was and how much partnering
Oh
was
my
in it.
God.
I'm partially responsible for how hard that show was, so sorry.
It's totally fun. I think it might be physically one of the hardest shows I've ever done,
Yeah,
but I
well,
loved it.
yeah. Thank God it was. I think it was just one show a night, 5 days a week. So that was the only way to survive it. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, and then after that, Chippendales, and for anyone out there that doesn't know, Chippendales while it is a male review, they try to be much more than just big guys taking clothes off. So they have a mix. We do have some bodybuilders, but we have a lot of like former athletes, people that you can are used to body movement and maybe weight transfer, and that you can coach up with dancing a little bit. But we these days we have like 4 to 5 properly trained dancers on staff at all time that are the technique of our dance numbers has gotten harder, and so I was working part-time at Chippendales and full-time at Pinup at the same time. And then Chips made me a great offer, and I loved it there. I loved working with the guys. I loved teaching and training the guys. So yeah, it's been a 6-year journey now where I'm the dance captain, and like I said, I play guitar on the show as well. So that's where I'm at.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I like that you mentioned pinup, and then I'm bringing it back to when you said that you were born between shows, and then your dad went and did the second show after everything was okay and you were healthy. I have a similar experience while I was in pinup. We had Aveline, our little girl,
Mm.
and had her at 8:30 in the morning, and then had pinup that evening. And there was at that point they had already known that the show was going to close soon-ish, so they didn't have any swings or covers for me. So
Oh
it
no.
was either nobody gets paid that night, or I go in and we all get paid. So I went and did that show that night, which was, I can't even remember really doing the show. It was a blur, and such a crazy high of, having a child that day.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. And am I correct in saying that your father is also part of Chips still?
That is correct. So yeah, he's worked his way up. My father's a maniac, man. He's one of those people that really just anything he sets his mind to, he does it wholeheartedly, and he usually has great success in whatever he's trying to do. So he was a dancer for years. When he retired, he got out of the industry and got into high-end retail, and he did that for 20 years. That was primarily when Laura and I were still at home, so it was really taking care of the family. My mom, she's a phenomenal teacher. It's just dance teaching doesn't always pay the most. Um, so yeah, so he was really kind of doing the work for the money, and then once my sister Laura and I were out of the house and successful, he kind of realized he missed the theater. So he just applied while he was still working during the day. He just applied for any like wardrobe or tech job around town that he could find that would take him, that wasn't unionized, because he wasn't part of any union. And he actually his first job was Vegas the show. He like worked wardrobe there for like 2 days a week, and then he got offered Showstoppers at the Wynn, which was a really, really good job. I think we've seen through this pandemic how well the Wynn has treated their employees, and so he was happy over there. But Showstoppers was a grind, man. A lot of costumes, a lot of washing, a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
And so he a spot opened up at Chippendales, and he kind of asked me, like, is that weird? Is it like, am I stepping on your toes? Like, is it weird to have your dad there? And it's important to understand that him and I are absolute best friends. I have that relationship with my whole family. Like we're just great friends. It doesn't feel like he's only a father if I need him to be. If that makes sense. Like if I'm struggling with
Yeah,
something, I need some fatherly advice. But besides that, we have best buddy vibes. So I was like, dude, yeah, come, like, be happy. If that's the job you want, like, yeah, I'm all for it. Um,
very cool.
so yeah, so he started there, and then long story short, he ended up learning all the wardrobe tracks. The tech crew ended up seeing his work ethic, and they needed some coverage. So they were like, hey, do you want to learn tech? So he ended up learning both deck tracks, and he could run the light and soundboard, run the shows from either board by the end of it. And so he knew literally every backstage position.
Whoa.
Yeah, and then the way it works, because we're a 7 day a week show, so we have a basically a front of house manager and a production manager in house every day. Um, but we obviously need swing coverage for them because they can't work 7 days a week, just to kind of fulfill their daily duties on their days off. So because he knew the show, as an ex dancer, and then knowing wardrobe, knowing tech, he just knew the show in a really intimate way. So they asked him if he wanted to manage, because he already knew everything. He already knew the people, knew the numbers, knew how the show was supposed to go. So he started as a swing manager, and then last November, they gave him the full-time gig. So he is now the production manager of the Las Vegas Chippendale show.
Oh, that's fantastic. What a cool journey. I
Yeah,
love that. All right, well, let's move on to this next section here. And look, I'm a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote that you'd like to share with our listeners?
man, you know what? I really struggled with this question. Because, and as you'll see in this interview, I I'm the opposite. Like I tend to be super long-winded, and everything has a little nuance, and I want to go onto different tangents and down different roads, and what does that mean, and like loop back around on this. And so like getting one thing in one quick little soundbite is just not the way my brain operates.
Fair enough.
Because I am a gas bag. I'll just sit here and ramble. So yeah, is that off of my like harpooning this podcast by by not
No,
having like
not
a
at
direct
all. Not at
answer?
all.
I just there's like so much nuance and philosophy and everything. Like, I mean, I kind of live by the idea of work hard, play hard. I know that's old and not really the most like thought provoking one, but I really do, especially in a town like Vegas. There's a lot of fun to be had here. I always make sure I do the work first. If you do the work, then you can have the payoff and you can live that life. But but yeah, it just work hard, play hard, but the work hard comes first in that. Like if you do the work, then you get to reap the rewards, and it's not always that cut and dry, but it's sometimes it can be that simple.
Totally. Well, let's move on to this part. And look, Ryan, of course, you are an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. And I think you'd agree that the entertainment industry is one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and to have a successful career in this industry, like you're having now, takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while sure, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement to be had being on that stage, traveling the world, there are also our fair share of challenges, obstacles, and failures that we're inevitably going to experience and we're going to have to learn to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
Well, I was fired from my first two jobs, my first two dance jobs. Both tap dogs. I guess at Jubilee, I technically was not renewed. They allowed after 6 months my contract to expire and didn't offer me a new one. Um, and I was 17 and 18 years old at the time, so that was obviously challenging to a young kid. Like I went from like getting a job. I was actually ahead in school, but I skipped and then proceeded to homeschool my senior year because I got a job offer at 17, this, summer before my senior year. So,
Yeah.
kind of going from that mentality of, oh, like this is going like I've been only been dancing for 5 years. I'm already getting a job offer, and what it's like a boy at a dance studio, they get a lot of preferential treatment. So I didn't necessarily have the most honest people around me because they just wanted boys and they were just they would love everything I did regardless.
Right.
Um, so I went from that high of like, man, I'm really doing this. to really getting knocked down a few pegs pretty quick, and I got let go from Tap Dogs because it's the same thing. I put the play before the work, those if anyone doesn't know that show, it's an all male tap dance show and it's based in Australia. So you can only imagine what kind of a culture shock it was for me, from like hanging out with like 15 and 16-year-old dancer girls to like 30-year-old Australian men backstage, like
Yeah, a
um
bit different.
so yeah, I was trying to be cool guy with them, and that wasn't, it didn't work out. So yeah, I was very rightfully fired from that job. And then Jubilee was a little more of a question mark. There was 6 guys that either quit or were released. It was one of those things that they were all white guys, and the 6 guys that brought in were all Latinos. So did I had a pretty good record of that show, but I also didn't, looking back, I didn't do a lot to like stand out, or like really cement myself there. I kind of just existed there. So, I don't know if they were changing the look of the show, or if they were, if it was something I did. I never really got that answer. So it just kind of made me reassess. I got the job offer. The next job I did was a show called On Eagle's Wing. It's the one in Ireland, and I got referred to, a friend of a friend referred me because she was looking for an Irish dancer, which those were my specialties, tap and Irish step. So I got a cold call for it, and I was super excited. But like that even came with the tag. She was like, "Listen," she's like, "I've called around about you. Like, you got recommended me by one friend, but like I've heard not great things about your work history from another friend. So like, if you're gonna do this job, I expect X, Y, and Z." And it just to hear like a future potential employer like say that, I actually almost didn't take the job just because like purely like my ego was hurt from hearing that. And I was like, man, is she gonna have something against me through this whole run? Is she always gonna look at me like I'm that way even if I'm not? So I was unsure about taking it. And in retrospect, it's one of those like kind of pivoting moments where it kind of snapped me out of it, and made me realize like, all right, this is what it's going to take to be a professional dancer. And I'm happy to report that was the last time I've been let go. So I guess I figured it out a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. And it's really amazing to realize that while this is a giant industry, it is so small in
Hmm.
so many ways. And inevitably, someone knows everyone,
Yeah.
and people talk. And that's why it's so important to, like you said, have that work ethic, put that work before the play, and to be nice to everybody.
Yeah. I'll say one of my most like, oh my God, the dance world and the performer world is so tiny moments was a couple years, I guess it was a year or two after that, the aforementioned Irish job. I was the only American on that job. It was mostly English dancers, a couple Irish dancers. And so I was back in Vegas, and a friend of mine that I did Jubilee with was calling me. He's like, "Hey, I'm going out tonight. I got a friend in town. Like, come on out." And so I was like, "Sure, that sounds great." So I met him in a bar, and this is my American friend that I did Jubilee with, 5 years prior. And then his friend walks in, and it's someone I did my Irish show with, an English dancer that he did a cruise ship with. I was like,
Wow. Yeah.
my goodness, like how small is this world?
It's crazy. And that kind of stuff happens more frequently than I would have ever thought would happen.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to this next section now, to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time that you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
Um, that moment came late into my career. I would say I didn't have that clarity until Vegas the show, which was 10 years ago. Which is, I was 25 when I joined Vegas the show. So I'd already been dancing for 7-8 years. I think this was just a product. Again, my parents were great. They never forced me to dance by any means at all. But it was both their passions. Not only was it around because of my mom's the studio she was at, but it was just, they loved it. They cared. So like if I did a good dance thing, my parents, of course, they connected to that in a different way, compared to like when I learned a cool guitar riff, because I'd also picked up guitar by that point. And so I love that part of it too. I love being part of the family thing, but my connection wasn't really with dance itself. I liked dance. But yeah, my connection was just with like the experience of it. And, I was treated as a boy to dance to. I was treated well, and it seemed fun, seemed like better than working in an office. So my career kind of followed that, where I did have a less of a like a epiphany within myself, more like a spiritual, like, oh, okay, this is the path I need to be on, was when I got that cold call to, I mean, how many times do you get a phone call be like, hi, I'm looking for you, I want to take you to Ireland. Like, okay. I
Yeah,
took
right.
that as a sign, because I was really contemplating after losing those first two jobs. I was really contemplating walking away from the industry. And so yeah, I got that cold call. So I was like, okay, this must be the path I'm supposed to be on. But again, it wasn't like an aha moment as a performer. It was more as a human. And then yeah, it just kind of followed that. I came back I got my show in China. Same thing, kind of a stomp, tap, Irish step type of thing. And by the time I got back from that, I was almost 21. So I just auditioned at Beavertane at the Rio. And for anyone that doesn't know that, they hire, back in the day, they used to have male dancers as well, but they hire male and female singers and dancers to, serve their drinks on their casino floor. And then you do little performances in between. So I got that job, but it was just kind of, you can make, 100, $200 in tips a day. And, I think they had like $8 or $10 an hour base rate. So it was like a good job. Like, I'm around my performer friends. I didn't really have a plan. And then I got another show through the same choreographer that took me to Ireland, got me a magic show in Holland through another like set of circumstances that I'm like, oh, okay, this must be the path I'm on. And then that led to my cruise ship, same producer. So I got back to Vegas, kind of, it was fun, and it was fun to be on stage, and it was fun to perform. But like, I was doing this because, like, holy crap, I get to travel. Like, someone's paying me to go to Japan. Like, yeah, I'll do that. Like,
Yeah.
dance is the on the top list of things I would do to get a free trip to Japan. Do many more
Totally.
mundane things than dance. So yeah, it was just fun, but it wasn't like I was connected to at least dance. I love performing, but at least dance I was never connected to that way until Vegas the show, and working with Tiger Martina, who I mentioned before, who him and I have had our ups and downs and back and forths with, but no one was able to unlock a care about movement, the way he was in me, and to watch, he could break down moves, emotionally, he could break down moves mechanically, and just really, he made me a better dancer and a much better teacher. And that's when I started to really connect with dance. Maybe not one single moment, but like as I went through that show and was teaching and learning from him. And then, that Vegas the show is the story of Las Vegas. So it was my family history. They start with like the neon boneyard with all the old signs, and like some of those signs were hotels my parents danced at. So just that
Yeah.
this thing clicked in of like, especially when my parents saw the show, like they saw like their child in a musical about their history. It's just like, it was wild. So like, that's the moment I felt like, all right, I belong, and I'm now doing this not for like the added benefit of like a travel, or the added benefit of like, I'm not at a desk, man. I'm now doing this for the sake of doing it. And that's when it changed. But I was well into my career.
Yeah. Well, let's piggyback on that question and let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if those happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
Yeah, I would say Vegas the show. The cold call to go to Ireland's a close number two. But yeah, I left my cruise ship without a plan. So I'd been out there for 5 contracts. It's 2.5 years, and it was just, I just felt it was time. Traveling and sea life is great, but it can wear you down. And so I just came back to Vegas. I had a little money saved up, but I didn't really know what was going to happen. And again, the fates just sort of intervened that a friend of my dad's, another older ex dancer in town, called me, and He was like, listen, there's an audition there's a new show from this guy named Tiger Martina. I danced with him and he's brilliant. I think you would like him and I think he would like you. I think you should go to this thing. And it turned out to be the original Vegas the Show audition. And it was literally a week to the day after I got back from my cruise ship. So, I mean, the timing, I just had someone looking out for me.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so I went and, and it was a big turnout. And it was actually intimidating because I had been out of the audition scene for a while. I'd been literally out of the country I'd actually been longer than that because I did the Hans Klock Magic Show into the cruise ship. So those totaled together about 4 years that, I had not auditioned for anything. I'd not been around the Vegas scene. And, Vegas auditions are a little different. Like, like a New York where you're going in like very clean clothes and like, LA, which, is very street and commercial. Like Vegas is like girls are in like hot bras, panties, full makeup, and guys are like in tight shirts. And the physiques out here for both the men and women are always impressive. So like walking into a Vegas audition can be a little overwhelming if you're not ready for it. It's just
For sure.
beautiful people everywhere wearing nothing. So yeah, I remember walking into that audition and just being like, oh man, like I'm used to like, yeah, that cruise ship, I was like, like, oh boy, all right, here we go. But yeah, there was, the guys audition. There's probably only 10 or 15 guys there that day. But it was me and one other guy. We learned one combo. It was super quick. We learned one combo. Probably took half an hour, 45 minutes to learn, and then we just drilled it, did it, and then did it in groups and called it a day. And there was me and one other guy that they called to the table. They're like, "You two are the for sure ones." So thank you. Like you'll be hearing from us, but we want to start rehearsals in a couple weeks. So yeah, just like taking that dive of, quitting a job, overseas and returning home with zero plan. And then, booking a show in my hometown, which is something I hadn't done for years. Just that was a really good one for me.
Absolutely. And you booked it in the room immediately,
Mm-hmm.
which is always a very cool experience.
Yeah. Cause then you don't have to like, is it gonna be one day? Is it gonna be a week? You don't have to like sweat out waiting for that phone call. Yeah. To walk out there, with that knowledge is just such a rewarding experience.
Totally. Well, let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And look, it's a weird time and we are amidst this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
So yeah, my as far as what I'm working on right now, I am just in this beautiful Chippendales bubble. But I've kind of I still love doing it. Anyone that knows Vegas knows that there's great like charity work and benefits and stuff. There's plenty of reasons to go dance, for dance sake and to help people out or raise money or whatever. As far as like stuff like that, I still love. Freelance gigs are still all over the place. They were up until the pandemic. So, learning, booking a gig and you learn 2 numbers over 2 days and then you do it for a corporate entity. Like that stuff is still very fun to me. But mainly like I'm in Chip's world. I've got a lot of responsibilities over there. I'm, as the dance captain, I'm in charge of training any new guys, keeping our current guys clean. We much like Vegas show or any other 7-day-a-week show. We are 7 days a week. That that requires, I need to be prepared for almost any combination of guys to be off. So right now I've got a staff of 13 for 9 positions, which means 4 guys can be off any given night. So that means I need 4 to 5 people to cover any track from, back corner in a group number to like a feature spot. So keeping the guys up to date with all the information, multiple guys from multiple tracks. I do the scheduling as well. So that takes up a lot of my time when we're going. So that's,
Yeah.
That's the project is, I love the show. I believe in the show. I think it's really rewarding to see some of these guys that never thought they'd be able to dance, just consider themselves big and oafy to start to wrap their heads around it. I think it's fun for the audience members that come to the show to see guys that were more capable than they thought they were going to see. So that's a huge passion of mine. And again, like I think my journey of, not falling in love with dance right away, that it was kind of just around. It gives me a way to like relate to some of these guys that, like they want to be at our job because it's fun, but they don't necessarily have a passion for dance, you know.
Yeah.
So it allows me to like kind of teach and connect to them in a way that I think is kind of cool. And so yeah, that is the project, like sustaining what we're doing, once we get back is the project. So if anyone out there wants to come see Chippendales, see what I'm working on, we're 18 and up, and guys, girls, anybody, everybody's welcome. There's a cheap plug once we get going. But yeah, as far as the entertainment industry moving forward, I'm maybe too optimistic, but I think it's going to come back fast and strong. I'll tell you this, my experience leading into the pandemic, and this is shared. I have friends in the ex-burlesque shows. I have friends in fantasy. I have friends in La Rev. So like not even just review shows. I kind of asked them, I was like, hey guys, how were your audiences leading up to the pandemic? And they said the same thing that I experienced, which they were crazy. They were full, they were packed. And because people, I think, even if they didn't know the extent that a shutdown was coming, they knew something like that was coming. Some things were locking up. Italy was in the middle of their craziness. China was locked down, and they felt it building. And I'll tell you what, from March 1st to March 14th, we were averaging, our theater maxes at like 250, just shy of 300, somewhere in there. And we were above 200 like on Wednesdays. We were above 200. We were slammed, and the audiences were crazy. They were invested in the show. They were screaming. They were partying. They were, because I think they felt it coming, that they might not be able to do that for a while. And I think, we've seen, regardless of what your feelings towards the pandemic are, we've seen that the states that have allowed a little more freedom, that people instantly are taking it. The beaches in Florida are jammed. A couple beaches that stayed open in Cali were packed. Bars and restaurant. Where was it? I think was it Wisconsin? I can't remember. Someone like the governor had like a shutdown order, and then like the state Supreme Court overruled it, and like bars opened that night, and the bars were packed. This was like a month ago. So I think people are, ready to get outside. I think a lot of people, are not, as crazy concerned about the virus, where other people are more, want to shelter more and things like that. But I think there's a significant group of people that's kind of ready to take life head on again. And I think the moment you open some of these show doors, I think we're back. I really do.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how things move forward. But I can absolutely relate. I was SMing and calling Absinthe the day before Caesar shut down all showrooms,
Mm.
and I'm pretty sure, if I recall, we had, I want to say, over 600 people in there,
Mm.
and I think the room seats around 650, 680. Huge audiences. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
absolutely massive audiences. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully it all comes back quickly.
Yeah. The only hiccup is like, if a small or big company, staying financially available to get there. We see all the money problems that Cirque is going through, and I saw that Human Nature is not going to return after their 14-year run here. That's a smaller show, just 4 guys in a band. So yeah, it's just like, can these companies, did some of them get that, the government assistance loans, or can they survive this time of not being open so that they can open the doors? That's going to be the one and only hiccup. Getting back, hiccup is such a light word for that. That's going to be
For sure.
the major obstacle in getting back. But if these companies can even stay afloat a little bit to get their doors back open, I think the people will be there.
I agree. Well, let's move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I'm going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible. Boom, 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 one after another. Are you ready?
I don't know. Quick and concise is my weakness, Dan. Come on.
Let's see how we go.
All right.
First question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
I wasn't sure if I liked it.
Fair. Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Learn anything you can. So diversify yourself as much as possible. If there's someone that you're working with that has a skill, there's someone that juggles, if there's someone that knows the kind of dance that you don't, if there's whether it's a teacher or a coworker, like take time, learn anything you can, because I've gotten so many jobs because I could do a lot of things, even if I wasn't the master of any one of them.
Totally. Third question. What is something that is working for you now, or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
Uh, don't make it so that no one's outworking you. If you're working harder than anyone else, even if you don't have the talent or you don't have the look or whatever, that it makes you indispensable if you're working harder than anyone else in the building.
Absolutely. I mean, I can personally relate to that from being initially put towards the back of a dance number, and then the next thing you know, you're front and center,
Yep.
simply simply outworking people. Fourth question. What is the best resource, whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, a podcast, maybe a piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now?
Oof. Um, I don't know if this is going to be the most helpful answer, but the best resource is other people around me. Any professional, anyone that's done anything that I can even get access to. Even a dance teacher, someone that's been anywhere around the industry. If you can pick their brain, usually better than a book which is a little more talking at you. As great as I'm sure there's some phenomenal books out there, but yeah, just getting as many different people's opinions as possible, and then deciding the ones, the advice that works for you, because some things that work in my path aren't going to work for other people, and some people's advice that was good, if I would have taken it, I might have failed. So there's a lot of ways to do it. You have to do it your way, but getting information from a lot of successful people around you, whether it's through podcasts or talking to you directly, is key.
Wonderful. I love that. And the fifth question. If you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
I mean, I'm grateful for my journey, including the hard lessons. So it's hard to say I would give those up. But yeah, no,
Totally.
I would definitely make different choices. I would have worked harder in the beginning. I would have realized, I've come to have joy in work, and when the feeling of applying yourself and really conquering something and getting your head around it. It's hard to start, but really is so satisfactory when you finally get a skill you didn't have, or when you get a job because you worked hard, or you keep a job, or you learn a new craft, or whatever it is. So I probably just would have applied myself more in the beginning in classes. I would have taken different classes on top of the ones I was taking, just to you know understand the satisfaction that comes with that on the other side. I didn't kind of know that at first. I thought I was just kind of like, oh, you do this, if I can skate, if I do this much, then I'm good enough and I can skate by. And it's not as rewarding, but it took time to learn that.
For sure. And the last question. What is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in the industry that you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Yeah, just continue on that, like diversifying yourself idea. That's like, I've gotten so many jobs because I had a random skill, or more likely, there's going to be a handful of people out there that, the moment you do ballet, or the moment you do jazz, or the moment you pick up an instrument, or the moment you paint a painting, like, you love it, and that's what you want to do, no question. For those people, I say, like, it's already clear, so just dive in and focus, put all your energy into that. For me, and I think a lot of people, as you're kind of sampling things and trying to figure out, oh, what do I want to do? This is cool. Maybe it's in this ballpark. I don't know. Learn any skill you can. So for me as a dancer, tap and Irish step and jazz and musical theater and modern and lyrical. Those things came together. Very rarely were people looking for a jazz master. Sometimes need some lead roles and shows and things like that. But a lot of the times they're like, hey man, I need someone that can do a little bit of like these 5 things. And because I fit that, I got jobs over more talented dancers than me. So I would say, and at different times, if you can get into a professional setting, there's going to be a coworker around you that has a skill that you don't. At least one, probably the whole staff you're with. So, pick their brains. Like, if someone's a belly dancer, if someone does this, especially the big thing these days is all the aerial stuff, all the pole and lyra and silks and all that. Like, dabble in everything. Because I'll tell you what, while there's top end jobs for like the best pole artists in town, there's a lot of jobs for someone that like can do 3 pole moves, can like do a couple rolls on the silks, but then like can get down and do a jazz combo. Like there's actually a lot more work for that, so, and then
Absolutely.
who knows, you might find, a joy. I picked up guitar, we didn't really get to it in the podcast, but like I picked up guitar young as like okay, if I don't love dance, like maybe I need something that's not family involved and that's just for me. And so I just picked up acoustic guitar when I was 16, and it very much was just a hobby, and as time has gone on, I've kept playing because I kept doing it, and it's become a huge passion of mine. And Chips has put it into the show, and it's now my favorite part of the show. Like, yes, I'm featured, but it really is like I love getting up and playing music, and I've done a few acoustic gigs with some singers in town, and like it's so fun for me. And I've like, as a 35-year-old man, in the last couple of years, like I've unlocked a brand new thing that I thought was a hobby. Turns out like this is a giant passion of mine, but that's because I tried something new. I diversified myself. I, picked up something different. So I'd say if you have, especially in the day and age of YouTube, there's anything you want to learn. Like I can learn guitar. I can learn how to fix a toilet. I can build drywall. Like you can learn anything on YouTube.
Honestly.
So in this day and age, there's no substitute for a real teacher at some point, but like, if you have a curiosity in anything, Google it, man. Just look it up, dive in, because the more of these little crafty, weird skills you have, the more, just in general in life, like I think it's a richer life to live. And then, it definitely makes you more hireable, and it tends to, if you got a bunch of skills and you've applied yourself to different crafts, it just kind of grounds you in a different way too, where, you're easy to work with because you've already untunneled yourself. Like, this is what I do. Like, oh yeah, I do this. Okay, I'll go over here. All right, like a new skill. Well, that's cool. They want to teach me this. Like, I don't know how to do it, but we're going to figure it out. Like, bringing that mentality into a work atmosphere. I can tell you, as someone who's now in charge of hiring, like that mentality goes so much farther than any one skill. I'll tell you that right there.
Absolutely. Massive advice for anyone out there listening. And to wrap up this interview, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
You can find me in my living room, because that's the only place that works. No, when the COVID restrictions lift to the point where shows can come back, Chippendales currently runs at the Rio Hotel. There's also rumors about that, but for now we're gonna say the Rio Hotel. But you can always find Chippendales info. There's a simultaneous Vegas show and tour. I do the Vegas show, but chippendales.com or at Chippendales on all social media if you just want to follow the show. Right now, I have nothing to promote. God, this is awful. I used to run everything through my Instagram, and that was taken down. Someone made a fake account of me, and they shut down all the Ryan Kelsey accounts.
Oh no!
Yeah. So yeah, and I kind of enjoyed a little bit of a social media break. So I've actually very purposely not started one. Once the show gets going again, I'm gonna just start a brand new one, and it's fine. If anyone's ever tried to get a hold of Instagram, you know how impossible it is. So I would say that, like, my name is Ryan Kelsey. I'm always bouncing around town. I will be at Chippendales when we reopen. So I would say just follow the at Chippendales, and then once my Instagram gets going again, the Chips Instagram is great about tagging and making sure that our personal Instagrams are looped into that. So once I get going again, you can find me through Chippendales.
Perfect. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for being here today and joining me. It's been fantastic having you.
Thank you so much for having me on, man. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Give it up for our 5-star reviewers, MB Radif, BJ Wolf, and Jess D. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for joining us today. My one call to action for you is to go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community, where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. Don't miss an episode. We have a new guest 7 days a week. Search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.